Hey, Dad.
What, Jake?
What did one elevator say to the other?
I don't know what.
I think I'm coming down with something.
Oh. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Engage, a family gaming podcast. This is episode 145, and I am your host, Stephen Duetzmann, as always. This is the official video game and board game podcast for EngagedFamilyGaming.com. EFG is a website where parents like myself and my co-hosts come together to give parents and families the information they need to get their family game on. This week, it's back to normal, sort of, but I am rejoined by my lovely wife, Jenna.
Hello, everyone.
And this week, we're going to get back and talk about video games, just like I promised. For those of you who are new to the show, welcome. And if you are joining us and might be interested in going back an episode, I definitely would recommend that. Last week, I interviewed Steve Jackson, the legendary Steve Jackson of Steve Jackson Games fame, and it was awesome. Did you listen to it, honey? No, she didn't. But that's okay. She was kind of like there while I interviewed the guy, so it's fine. It was a great interview. He gave some cool advice, and he talked about his Kickstarter, which is currently still live. So definitely listen to episode 144 when you're done with this one. But today, we're going to talk about a game that has been a point of contention in our house for a little bit of time. We're going to talk about Fortnite.
Yay, Fortnite.
As you can tell, Jenna is super thrilled to talk about it. It has entered our home, and we both have mixed feelings about it, although I think we might actually agree on some things. So that should be interesting. But we're also going to give you information about what it is, what it means, how big of a deal it is, before we talk about just our opinions. So before we go too much farther, I do want to take a moment to thank you guys for listening this week. We do hope that the games you've been playing have been great. I can say that the games I have been playing have been awesome. I haven't played a bad game in a while. We want to make the podcast more interactive, so please feel free to reach out to us on social media, like sending us a private message on our Facebook page. That's EngagedFamilyGaming.com/Facebook, and let us know any comments, questions, feedback, and topic suggestions, because the coming weeks are going to be, a little dry. So, why don't we start, as we have in the past, but we haven't really done this in a while. Why don't we go around the horn?
Sounds good.
So, you, very recently, finished The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time on the 3DS.
That was not recently, but yes, I did.
Well, compared to when you played your last video game,
right.
It was recently, and since then you took some recommendations, and from me specifically, and you've been playing a little bit of Bravely Default. So why don't you tell everybody about it?
Well, I think the very, very last time we were here, we talked about it briefly, but Bravely Default is, I believe, by Square Enix. Is it by Square Enix?
It's published by Square Enix. It's actually developed by a company called Acquire.
Okay.
But it's published by Square Enix. It is...
I like it because it feels like an old Final Fantasy X. I like the way that it plays. I like the way that you battle. I like the fact that I can play for a little bit of time, pause the game, not feel like I really, missed anything, go back and pick it up and keep playing. It's super cute. The characters are really cute. It works, like I said, a lot like a Final Fantasy game. You grind. It pretty much is. It feels like a Final Fantasy game.
It's absolutely a Final Fantasy. It is... there are 2 games in the series now. You're playing the first one, Bravely Default, and then there is a Bravely Second. It borrows very heavily from the Final Fantasy mythos. With that said, Final Fantasy, at least the fantasy Final Fantasies, do have a lot of fantasy tropes, so it's not like wizards and paladins and stuff like that. So it's not like it's impossible to for them to kind of be original, but just everybody kind of apes on the same stuff. But I mean, there are time mages, and there are red mages, and there are phoenix downs.
I mean, yeah, some of that is very similar, and I like the job system. I like the way that it works in this game. I like that you can train under one job and not really. So far, I mean, I haven't played for very long, but so far, I haven't lost the path of the game. Like, you took over infamously my Final Fantasy X save.
You have brought this up on so many podcasts.
Because of the choices that I made, and because of the way that I played the characters, in this game it doesn't feel like you can really do that. You can't, like, screw up how you play the characters, because you can just keep changing your jobs and...
Yeah, I mean, in this game, absolutely. In this game, you could... Final Fantasy X had the sphere grid where you could take characters down the wrong path, and I recall doing that.
Right.
And you were you did things a little bit differently. So I do remember you call me out on this all the time.
I'm not calling you out. I'm just bringing up the fact that this game is harder to go down a wrong path that you can.
Because then you can just go backwards a little bit and grind some more, and you'll catch up. I agree. I think this is one of the games that I think, in a few years when we settle down and make like the best games on the 3DS list, I'm pretty sure that Bravely Default's going to be on there. It's standing the test of time for me. I really enjoy it. Admittedly, we are pro role-playing game in this house, so there is that. But it is a lot of fun. It's an interesting story.
And
it's a little bit of a slog towards the end, but you're not quite there yet.
Not even close.
Yeah, not even a little bit. So, speaking of games made by Acquire, I think this is a reasonable segue. I've been playing Octopath Traveler for the Nintendo Switch, which is another game made by Acquire. So this is the follow-up for them to Bravely Default, and it is very, very good.
It is. It looks very similar. The artwork's a little bit different in that.
Oh, it's significantly different. I mean, we have to call it like it is. Graphically, Octopath Traveler is somewhat unique in that nothing's ever looked like it. Basically, what it does is it takes a 16-bit art style, like from what a Super Nintendo game would be, but essentially kind of tips it over on its side and makes it like a 3D diorama, and then adds in things like volumetric lighting. So there's things like shadows and, God rays. Is that what they call those?
Yeah.
Yeah, God rays, while you're walking through forests. And also snow, sand, and water are all done in 3D.
Right, which is, it's really weird. Part of it is like hyper realistic, and then you're watching these 16-bit characters walk around through this world. It's jarring sometimes.
I admit that. It is jarring. There are some, but I love the way that it is done. I hope this is an art style that Acquire it just takes and just makes a ton of them. And considering how well this game has sold, they actually had to make a formal apology in Japan because they didn't make enough physical copies of the game. They vastly underestimated how fast this game was going to sell. It is very good. Now, I do have some things to say.
Let's talk about the family-friendly.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So, so this game is about 8 different characters. I have now found all 8 of the characters. And what's interesting is all 8 characters have their own individual story arcs that really don't interact with each other. This is, as I've said on other shows, and I'll say it here, this is the story of a LARP team or a Dungeons & Dragons party. These characters are connected on the most tenuous basis, right? Like, they're just there. And it's like, hey, I'm this goody two-shoes religious cleric, and I'm on a religious pilgrimage. Oh, and I found this guy who's a thief. Yes, I will absolutely help defend you to the death as we go into this rich person's house and try and steal their stuff.
Right.
Which, on its own, makes no sense. But this really, I think this is 8 different shorter stories. The real place where it shines is in the way the characters interact and the different class system. Now let's talk about the different characters. Now that I have played through all of them, most of them are relatively tropey. You have a knight who's on a quest to find, to avenge his king. One of the characters is a dancer. Now when I say a dancer, I don't mean in the ballet kind, if y'all know what I mean. And she is a lady of the evening.
Right.
and that centers around the very beginning of her story. I have not finished this game. It is long. However, in the very beginning, she is called some very inappropriate names and things like that. So this game is rated T for a reason. I think that you should definitely play with caution. One thing that is possible with this game that I think makes things a little bit better is you don't have to play everyone's stories.
You don't, but some of the other characters interact if she's in the party with her in any way.
Not really.
Well, I will tell you that our 12-year-old son said that one of the characters was very pervy towards her just for watching for a few minutes. I don't know.
We're talking about a different game.
No, I don't think so, but that's okay.
So, I mean, no, it's not okay. I need to be very specific. There is not a moment of this game that has been played that I have not been behind the controls, and no one in the party has interacted with her at all. This is actually a point of contention with the whole game, in that you have this party, and they don't talk to each other.
Okay.
So, if he is saying that, he might be talking about other people. I don't know.
I don't know what he was talking about, but he either stopped, he was watching a video and told me he had to stop watching it, or it was you playing, and he said he had to stop watching it.
Okay.
And I don't know specifically what he was talking about, but he said that this game is not.
It's rated T for teen.
Yeah.
I don't know that I necessarily, I mean, and we can talk about him. I mean, the reality is he's almost 13. So, but it's rated T for teen for a reason, and a lot of it is based on, there obviously is violence, and there is some language, specifically some of the language that is used towards her, and she is, the opening part of her story, at least, is very much centered around the fact that she is a lady of the evening, and she owns it and is using that to be close to, her, I don't want to spoil everything, but she's doing it on purpose, and so it's challenging, I think, and will be for some folks. With that said, mechanically it is awesome. So this is one of those things, maybe play through the story parts, and if you want to share the combat piece, I think that's more than cool, because the combat piece is really where this game shines. So that is Octopath Traveler. It's been a while since we've gone around the horn, so I'm going to knock out and talk about some of our other, because we've had a swarm of indie games come into the house. So shout out your comments as we have them. Let's talk about 20XX, which is a multiplayer, procedurally generated Mega Man X clone with online multiplayer. We had that game. It was sent to us. Thank you to the developers. This game is really good and will very likely be one of my games of the year by the end of the year. I really like it. It is fun. Mega Man has never been a multiplayer game. So to make a game that feels like Mega Man X, which is one of my favorite Super Nintendo games, and make it fresh and new and interesting and just, give me a reason to keep playing is pretty rad. I know you had thoughts on it while we were playing it.
No, I have, that I have a problem with the repetitive music sounds, the noise, the sound on the game got to me. But it does on all of those type of games. It's very hard to sit and watch somebody play a game like that. It's not entertaining. There's not a lot of, I watch games differently. There's not a story involved. I thought it was Mega Man when I first saw you playing. Except for the fact that is it a girl?
I think so. I don't really know.
Anyways, I thought it was Mega Man when I saw you playing it, and in and of itself, it looks like a good game. The kids enjoyed watching you. It's a little.
It's definitely not your jam.
No, it's not. It's a little loud. It's a little noisy, and it's just not something that, as a person sitting in the living room viewing the main TV in the house, it's not fun to watch. I think it plays well.
I enjoy watching it, but I think that's just the difference between you and I. Fair warning, when I do pick up the Mega Man X Legacy Collection, you might want to find another place to play then. Because that game, man, I can't wait. So that is 20XX. It's $20. It's available on just about everything. PC. It's been on PC for a while. PS4, Xbox One, Switch. They have a third character that's being added to the game at some point within the next year or so, which is super rad. I actually played as that third character while I was at PAX East a while ago.
Is that available will be available?
It's going to be a free download.
Oh, free. Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be a free download. So, to my understanding. But even if it was paid, it would probably be worth it because it's a super rad character. But I'm pretty sure it's going to be free DLC. This is a really cool game, inexpensive package, and because it's procedurally generated, it never ends. The cost to that is that there's no sense of progression. You can't really beat it, but you can definitely get better at the game. So that is 20XX. I haven't talked about Rainbow Skies yet, and I think now's a good opportunity because I haven't gone around the horn in a while. Rainbow Skies is a turn-based JRPG that uses like a grid-based combat system. There are characters, you're choosing abilities for them. It is cool. I really hate the controls. They are distracting, and they actually make the combat less fun. And the reason that I hate the controls, you would think this is just a grid-based combat game, and I love grid-based combat games. Rather than like moving a cursor around and like selecting it and having characters move, you actually have to press directions on the D-pad. And the field of view is kind of viewed isometrically, meaning you're like kind of above and to the right. And there are times where you just push the wrong button and you screw up whole fights. And I've lost fights because I accidentally moved in the wrong place. Because it's not an easy game. It's cute. Some of the monsters are kind of neat looking, but I'm really struggling with the controls compared to the difficulty. It's a relatively inexpensive game. It is a sequel to a game called Rainbow Moon, which is on PS3 and Vita. So it's Rainbow Skies. Here's my recommendation. If you are hungry for a grid-based strategy style game, I think Rainbow Skies is a reasonable pickup. You just need to be very careful with the controls. We're going to have a review on the site shortly. I want to put a few more hours into it to really be certain. Now that I've finished most of it, I want to get a little bit more time with it. But we'll have a review of that soon. But this is really reserved for those that really want a turn-based strategy game. Lastly, I want to talk about Bomb Chicken.
Oh, boy.
So you say, oh boy, but that game was fun.
The kids enjoyed it.
So here's the premise of Bomb Chicken.
It's really silly.
You were a chicken that instead of laying eggs, you lay bombs. In fact, you can lay stacks of bombs, which help because you don't have a jump button. You cannot jump. The only thing you can do is lay a stack of bombs and like kind of walk off of it. And because you're a chicken, you can glide a little bit. And this is a puzzle platformer. 100% puzzle platformer. There are some timing-based segments, but a lot of this is, puzzling your way through. One of the things you can do is you can actually kick the bombs. If you make a stack and jump off of it, you can kick the whole stack. It looks a little bit fancier than 16-bit graphics. The music is fun, and dude, at the end of the day, you're a chicken laying bombs.
Yes.
And the animation of the chicken, this like fat, spherical basically chicken laying a bomb egg and like using it to propel itself upwards is hilarious.
It's funny. The kids really enjoyed it. They got giggly and a little crazy and a little silly, but they did play. Everyone tried their hand at it, even the 5-year-old.
She didn't do so good.
Yeah, she did not. I didn't know what the game was. I actually hadn't seen you play it. I came home from work to find the kids playing it, and I was like, I don't understand why there's a game where the objective is to kill the chicken, because that's what it looked like the objective was, because they couldn't get through a level without killing the chicken. He's like, no, that's not what the game's about. You're a chicken with bombs. I'm like, you guys are really bad at this game.
I mean, they are bad. Well, here's the thing. The game is hard. It's not that they're bad. It's that the game really is not easy.
Is it hard or is it mom hard?
No, it's hard. It is a challenging game. With that said, I enjoy it. It is very forgiving. There's a really nice checkpoint system. There are a lot of levels in this game. But dying really doesn't hurt you too much, which I think is important. They encourage experimentation. There's only been a few times I've had to resort to like guides and stuff online, which is saying something. So that's Bomb Chicken. It's $15. It's right now. It's on the Switch. I'm presuming it's going to come to everything. Bomb Chicken is really freaking good, dude. It's really good. I don't know if it's going to be like on a Game of the Year list or anything. I think that's kind of reserved for like a special place. But it's really good. It's $15, and I really can't say enough good things about it. You play anything else?
Board games. Nothing. My daughter's been on a board game kick recently.
Well, we're going to save those for the post-Gen Con thing. But I do want to talk very briefly about my new obsession.
Oh, the cat game. The kitty game, as my daughter calls it.
The kitty game that I discovered today on the Facebook. Don't mind me while I open one of my loot chests.
Well, what's the name of the game?
I have to look it up.
Oh.
It's called Cat Cafe. And basically, what you are is you are a barista, but instead of serving coffee, you serve cats, but not like in a food kind of way. Basically, you have a whole bunch of cats, and people come into your cafe who are looking for very specific things. Like this person, I'm playing this game literally while I'm talking. This person really wants like a fancy cat. So you have a cat. I have a cat named Muffin, and I just drag Muffin up to him, and they hang out and they snuggle. And this person wants a lovable cat, so I have Bon-chan, and I give Bon-chan to this little this nice little lady, and this guy wants another fancy cat, and I don't have one, but that's fine. I can just give him one of my other cats. And by completing those by completing pairings and giving people the opportunity to play with your cats, you earn hearts. The hearts give you access to these little like baskets. The baskets give you loot that you then use to level up your cats, which means they can make people happier, which means you get more hearts, which blah blah blah. This is very much this is very much one of those games, like the baskets that you get over time. Like in the beginning, they were like they take a minute to open, and now they're taking 2 hours to open. It's one of those games.
It's a mobile app.
It's definitely a free-to-play mobile app. With that said, I did hand it to Megan, and she totally played it the whole time, basically, while we were watching Avengers today.
Right.
And because it's simple to control, it's adorable, and it's Cat Cafe. It's free on iOS. Here's what I would say: there's really not too many ways to spend money. If you're not looking for them, and there's really no consequence to just sitting there and like matching people up with cute cats, and it's free, guys. So, if you like cats, or if you have a kid that is obsessed with kittens and wants 10 kittens when they're older.
She does want to be a crazy cat lady.
She does want to be a crazy cat lady.
She's told people that. It's very funny.
Yeah, and they're cute. This is not going to change anyone's life. We're probably going to delete it in a few days. Although maybe not, because she likes playing it. So that's Cat Cafe. And yeah, you've played a lot of board games, but we're going to talk about that in our post-Gen Con episode when we get Linda and Rob on here, and the four of us will all talk about some of that stuff, because Gen Con's going on literally as we record this.
Right.
Oh, boy. And so, why don't we take a break, and then when we come back, we got a whole bunch of questions from the community about Fortnite.
Sounds good.
It's intense. I don't know if we're going to be able to do it. Do you think we're going to be able to do it?
I'm sure we can.
I'm sure we will. So, folks, we'll be back in a minute. All right, everybody, welcome back to episode 145 of Engage, a Family Gaming Podcast. It's still Steve and Jenna here, and it's video game week. We just went around the horn, and now we're on to our topic. But before we do that, Jenna, I have a piece of trivia for you.
You do, huh?
I do.
Okay.
What was the best-selling piece of video game hardware, specifically hardware, in the month of June of 2018? So last month. Well, it's technically August 1st, but whatever. Yeah. The month before last.
Okay, so knowing you and your love of Nintendo, it's got to be the Switch.
It is not the Nintendo Switch.
Huh.
Good guess.
What about a 3DS? Because that'd be just funny.
It's funny, but it's not the 3DS.
Well, I figured maybe it's the summertime and parents are buying things to keep their kids entertained.
I'm guessing that people are buying things to keep themselves entertained. Yes.
All right. So.
Do you want me to just tell you?
Nope.
All right.
I'm still gonna guess. June. Oh, hey, I know.
What?
The NES Classic came back out.
You're right. And the NES Classic was the #1 selling piece of video game hardware.
Nah. For real?
June. It absolutely was, according to the NPD. Which
I guess at its price point, you can't.
It's hard to argue. $60. Is it $60? Yeah, it's $60. The SNES was $80.
Okay.
So at $60, the NES Classic, there are a lot of people that did not get one the first time around. Fortunately, we did. Thank you.
You're welcome.
To you and your insomnia.
Target run.
That you bailed on it being a secret literally an hour after I woke up.
I know I couldn't keep it a secret, but it's what happens when you wake up at the crack of dawn and you're not feeling well. You just go to Target
and you go to Target and buy it. So that's an interesting piece of trivia, just for those people that might. If you want to ask your kids. As long as they're not listening, because it kind of defeats the purpose. But that's one that is going to catch everybody by surprise. Very interesting. So, but that's not our topic. Really, we're going to talk about Fortnite. Fortnite is taking the world by storm. Epic Games
has been,
and it has been for a while. Months. It's making about $300 million a month, which is pretty impressive for a game that's free.
Right.
So we thought we would talk a little bit about what Fortnite is, and then we would talk about what our experience as a family has been with Fortnite, because now we're about a week in. And then we got a whole bunch of questions in the community that you can find at engagefamilygaming.com/community. And we thought we would go ahead and answer, a bunch of those questions, whichever ones we could get to. So let's talk about what Fortnite is. So first off, for those of you who are interested, head on over to Engage Family Gaming and search Fortnite, and you'll actually find 2 articles. One of them is a parent's guide to Fortnite, and the other one is a beginner's guide to Fortnite. The parent's guide goes over some of the, the nuts and bolts. How much is it? Where can you play it? Is there voice chat? How do you pay for it, etc. The beginner's guide is if you want to play and you want to be competitive, this is how you begin to learn about Fortnite theory. This game is the biggest deal in gaming in 2018. I suspect that it will continue that way into 2019. It is cannibalizing it's eating everybody else's lunch. Cannibalizing is probably a little dark. It's eating everybody else's lunch, though. All sorts of other online-focused games like League of Legends, Dota 2, Overwatch, Team Fortress, all of these games are seeing their viewership on YouTube and Twitch drop, and their concurrent players. Last year, the dominant game of the hour was PUBG, which we've talked about briefly before. It's an M-rated game, but it's another Battle Royale-style game. That game, at its peak, had 3 million concurrent players on Steam, which is a PC marketplace. Now it's struggling to get 1.3. Now, admittedly, 1.3 million concurrent players is a lot, but Fortnite puts in ridiculous numbers.
Well, first of all, you described it as a Battle Royale game. What is that?
So a Battle Royale game is... it's a whole genre, but basically a Battle Royale game is where a player, or more appropriately a large group of players, are dropped onto a map with limited resources, and their job is to both explore the map, find resources like new weapons, ammunition, etc., and then be the last man standing.
So Hunger Games.
It is very similar to Hunger Games. With that said, it is also very similar to a movie that was made in Japan called Battle Royale.
Fair enough.
Which is literally a group of teenagers dropped in. It's Hunger Games before Hunger Games was Hunger Games. I don't know that Hunger Games was specifically inspired by that. I don't know the history, but Battle Royale is 100 teenagers dropped onto a map and the last man standing wins. Maybe not 100, but it's a lot. PUBG is 100 players. Fortnite is 100 players. Call of Duty is going to have a Battle Royale mode. Battlefield is going to have a Battle Royale mode. There's a medieval one called Realms Royale, which we have not played, but I'm sure I'm going to eventually because it sounds very interesting. I'd be surprised if World of Warcraft doesn't add a Battle Royale mode in their next expansion at some point.
Well, I mean, they had something similar in the game.
They did, and I argue, and this is a deep cut, but for those of you that played World of Warcraft back in the day, I would argue that Alterac Valley, the 50 on 50 mode, was, I think it was 40 on 40, but whatever. I would argue that that was absolutely pretty close. But I think that having it either way, it doesn't matter.
Right. So anyway,
so that's a Battle Royale game. Fortnite is it's.
You said it's free.
It is free. It is available on. Here's the reasons why. This is part of the reason why it's successful. It's free. It's available on everything. You start as a character. You are given the ability to drop onto a map. You actually skydive out of a battle bus, which is a bus that's attached to a hot air balloon. You skydive onto a map. And on the map are guns, ammunition, building materials, grenades, potions, etc. And the idea is that you gather resources and eliminate opponents. And the thing that sets Fortnite out apart from a number of other games in the genre is that Fortnite is about building and base building. So you are chopping down trees and using a big pickaxe to chop down trees and knock down walls to collect bricks and chop up cars to collect metal that you, towards the end of the game, use to build giant towers to give yourself elevation advantage, but also to give yourself essentially armor because your opponents have to shoot through the walls that you build. It's exciting. It's interesting. And everyone right now, at least in the United States, either plays it or has an opinion about it.
Fair enough.
So, the advantage, I think, it's rated T, compared to some of the other games, is it is cartoony, very cartoony. It's made by Epic. They have made a number of other games. Specifically, they used to be responsible for the Gears of War franchise, but that was another lifetime. But it's a very polished experience, meaning there's not a lot of bugs. Things work like they're supposed to, unlike other games in the genre that are just kind of being thrown together. Like PUBG is still, broken, whereas Fortnite is not.
Right.
In the same way. Also, it's free, and it's available on phones and all the major consoles and PC.
Right, including the Switch.
Including the Switch.
Okay.
And another... go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Another interesting factoid about Fortnite is, with the exception of PlayStation 4... players on Xbox, mobile, Switch, and PC can all play together. We've actually done this. I have played on the Xbox, and Jake has played on the Switch, and Evan has played on my phone. And we've all been in the same group together. We've only managed to do that once or twice, just because, not all of us really want to sit down and play it at the same time, and really none of us like playing it on the phone. But it's there.
Which is funny because kids at school play it on the phone all the time. They get it taken away from them.
You notice that I put up a PSA about it months ago, sitting in an AT&T store parking lot, just saying, hey guys, listen, kids are playing Fortnite on their phones at school. You got to be aware of it. You got to at least talk to them about it.
Right.
I just don't like it, but you know what? It is better than nothing. Especially if you have a battle pass, which is a thing you can. The way they make money is they sell cosmetics, right? Skins, which are different ways to make your character look cool, and other things like that. One thing that they've done is that it's relatively revolutionary is they sell this thing called the Battle Pass, which is you can spend $10, buy a Battle Pass, and it gives you a series of challenges, and a natural progression through all those challenges just nets you a bunch of stuff, which is kind of neat, I think. You get skins that you can level up and, things like that. It gives you more reason to play the game other than just the act of playing it. So, that's Fortnite in a nutshell. I definitely recommend everyone who has not heard of it or played it themselves, go on YouTube, search up Fortnite, look up a video. I think it's worth 5 to 10 minutes of your time to kind of get an idea what it at least looks like, especially if you have kids. especially if you have younger kids who are going to be growing up in a post-Fortnite world, you want to know at least what they're talking about. And you definitely want to know what they're looking at if it's on their screen. If they're watching it on YouTube or something, it'll be good to know, that you're watching Fortnite, so that you can either stop it or so at least you know they're watching Fortnite and not something else, if you're okay with it. So let's talk about our family's experience with it, because we're about a week in. And so...
Well, let's talk about, first of all, I didn't want it. I mean, we talked about that before. I did not want Fortnite in the family. And we've mentioned why. Basically, I don't see the point of a game that is violence for violence sake. However, with it being so widely discussed and so prevalent, we ended up in a situation where our boys were being left out in social situations because they didn't play the game. Not only left out, they were being made fun of or teased. Because while they knew a lot about the game, just being in our family with the video games as a focus, and they were never allowed to play it. And I resisted for
quite some time. It came out last September.
Right. And the kids have been asking, and people have been asking the kids to play almost all year. And I definitely said no, not during the school year, and I would consider it in the summer based on grades and behavior and all kinds of things. And the big shocker came when we found out that a parent that we know who was very strict in allowing their child access to video games, who actually ended up playing it and had been playing it fairly regularly, and our boys were not allowed. And it was kind of a shock to me that it becomes so prevalent that this very, very, very strict, anti-violent video game family had allowed their child to play, and our sons were heartbroken.
For sake of information, this family, the mother in this family and I got into, I don't want to call it an argument, but we had a discussion because she declared that Minecraft was horrifically violent, which I think, and I think is untrue. But I wasn't going to get into a fight with her because, at the end of the day, if she doesn't want somebody playing Minecraft, then so be it.
But again, now we're in a situation where that same parent is letting their child play Fortnite.
And they went off to Boy Scout camp, and that's the other piece. They went off to Boy Scout camp, and while we were waiting around with all the boys, getting ready to, get their gear packed up and get ready to check in, all the kids were doing the dances and talking about it and talking about how they were going to miss it and what they were going to do to make up for missing the time on their battle passes. And our boys just kind of sat there. Now, should we necessarily cave to peer pressure? Are we setting a great example in regards to that? That was something that hit me, right? Like, are we caving to that? And I think we are a little. So, we have to kind of own that. But,
absolutely.
But, and I do. But I was kind of pro Fortnite to begin with.
Right, you were. And I was the one who kind of just, I want to say, get tired of fighting it.
There's part of it. And I think there's going to be a lot of parents that are out there in that vein who, and Fortnite's probably not Fortnite's not the only game that people argue about, right?
Right. But, mommy blogs and parent magazines and all kinds of things. Fortnite is legitimately everywhere. So when you are the holdout, it's really hard not to give into that.
And I think that's so. This is the reason I brought that up, because we could have just let it go and let you draw your own conclusions, but we wanted to own that because to a degree it is kind of caving to a little bit of peer pressure. With that said, we did it. As I told the boys when I pulled them aside in the middle of camp, because we went there on a Wednesday for like a family night thing, and I pulled them aside and told them that we had kind of made the decision. I was like, I just want to be clear. Your mother relented. She is not excited about this. She's relenting because what we don't want is for our kids to walk into school in the fall and have like this one relatively simple thing. This is the equivalent of not watching the Avengers or, something like that. Like, this is a pretty big deal, and we wanted to at least give them a baseline of experience, assuming they were responsible about it and good about it, and they, and did their chores and things like that, which I am happy to say, in general, Fortnite has been a reasonable currency with which to draw on to get them to do things.
Yeah.
In general. I mean, they're kids, so kids do dumb things. I mean, everybody that listens to me on a podcast knows I've said that. Kids do dumb things. But I have to say that it has helped.
So I'm not going to continue the discussion about how it's affected our family because there are some specific questions from
we've definitely gone forever. With that said, I have played with
I'm saying that there are some questions that have been asked about how it affects our family. So I want to read those questions and kind of...
okay, so who's...
branch from there. Well, first of all, it's Linda, our board game editor, and she's got 2 young boys of her own, and she's also a teacher in an elementary school. So, this question is coming from that perspective.
Sure.
First of all, her this is more the teacher aspect I'd go for. Young kids are playing, and it is rated T for teen. And are there any concerns for content for parents and teachers for these younger players?
Well, I mean, at the highest level, it's rated T for violence because at the end of the day, you are cartoon characters. I think we can agree they're cartoon characters shooting at each other with AR-15s and rocket launchers and, pistols and submachine guns and sniper rifles, etc. So at its highest level, this is a shooter. So I think that there is that to be concerned about. Now, counterpoint, there is no blood in this game.
There's no blood.
Characters that are eliminated fall over and a little satellite thing pops down and beams them up and then they're eliminated. Up. There are no bodies. So there is that.
It does say kill count. There is a kill count, but I think it does say
in general they refer to them as eliminations.
But it's a player elimination. But there are kills in there too. So it uses both words, which is if you're concerned about it, that's something you may want to.
And also, you're playing with 100 people. And so the vast majority of them will be strangers. Right. And it is very easy to play squads. In fact, if you buy a battle pass, which we did, because it's $10 and adds a lot to the game. I personally recommend it for anybody playing Fortnite, but you'll get quests that sometimes say that you need to get a certain win in a squad, and if you're not playing with friends, you may be your kid may be tempted to do that with randoms, which means they're subjected to randoms on the internet.
Now, that being said, you don't have to hear what people are saying.
You can very easily mute them. The instructions are on each console. So you could just join a squad and then mute them.
However, that does make the game, A, much more difficult to play, and B, sometimes you don't mute them and you can hear what they're saying, but your kids can't talk back. So we had to address that issue and get them...
Oh, yeah, you definitely
earbuds.
Have to mute yourself.
Yeah, and we also had to get them earbuds with microphones so that they could interact with the other players. That was something that I was very reluctant to do, and that I don't necessarily recommend for younger players.
I totally agree. The only reason we did it is because they were playing with friends.
Friends, right.
Because we have traditionally because we played a lot of Overwatch, which is a team-based multiplayer game. We were not voice chat people.
Right.
But this is an exception because one of the reasons that I was really kind of encouraging you to let them play was because they wanted to play with their friends.
Right.
And 2 days afterwards, Jacob woke up early without a fuss, came downstairs and was quietly playing Fortnite with one of his best friends. And he was, whereas before he would have come down and probably eaten all of our food and turned on the TV too loud and woken us up.
Right.
But he was just curled up under a blanket on the couch with the Switch, playing with his, quietly talking with his friend.
Right.
Which so anyway.
So the
that's
question
the
is,
content.
So the content it is there. There is the potential for encounters with strangers. There is violence involved. The second part of her question is, now that I have let my kids play, have my feelings about the game, me specifically, have my feelings about the game changed?
I am curious.
The violence level is much less concerning to me now because I have seen the way that it's played. Yes, there's guns. Yes, there's submachines. Yes, there's shooting, but that's not really the focus of the game. It feels almost like it's not Capture the Flag that I'm thinking of, but it feels like a game where
feels like paintball to me.
not even paintball. That's not where I'm going. Like back in the day, we used to play games out in the field where we'd run around and so we're playing on a video game and not in the field, but we'd run around and we'd try and get the little flags from people's like tails, and the last one standing was the winner. It feels like it's that kind of game. You have to think strategically. You have to hide. You have to pay attention to what's going on around you. Mm-hmm. So the violence, yes, it's there, and yes, it's a overlaying factor to the game, but it kind of seems less violent now the more that I've seen them go into matches. There's a lot of different modes that they can play in. They can play in small groups. They can just play, the boys can play together. They can play with just their friends. They can play in the big, large group. I do like the fact that there's some variety for them to play. However, my feelings have changed because of some of the behaviors that the boys have with regards to sportsmanship and playing together.
Yeah.
And I think that
is true.
That may be some of the things that Steven and I agree on with regards to the game. I think it brings out some of the worst in their sportsmanship behaviors.
And I think, the reality is the only reason that I don't bring that up necessarily in regards to Fortnite is I think we'd be having the same problem if they were playing Madden. Like they are competitive, but they are on a different level competitively because we have the two kids who are at vastly different experience levels playing games.
Yeah, they're 2.5 years apart.
2.5 years apart, and they are 2.5 big years. But
right.
Also, Evan tries to play competitively, and so he pays attention to optimal strategies, and Jake does what's cool.
Right.
And oftentimes that means that he gets a tactical shotgun blast to the back and he falls over and he gets mad.
Right.
Because Evan gets him. And you know what? But I agree. We have definitely had a salt problem.
Yeah.
But you know what? We have a salt problem when they play Street Fighter. And I bet.
Well, that's my point. Is that some of the more aggressive games they play do lead to their competitiveness not being held in check. And it's everything. They get that way when they play Super Smash Brothers. They get that way when they play Street Fighter. They get that way.
Yeah.
So it's...
Which is why I didn't want to blame it on Fortnite.
Right, but it's why I didn't want them to play this type of game to begin with, and it does, in fact, reinforce that that highly competitive, more aggressive games do lead does make their behavior in that sportsmanship kind of go away. Now the good news is they go out, they basically get so frustrated with each other and with the game, they stop playing, they go outside and they pretend battle royale outside and they run around the yard and they get all their emotions out and then they're fine. But it's just they need that outlet. The energy and the adrenaline and all of that kind of builds up in them. They fight, give up on the game, and then go outside. So I don't know if my feelings have changed. It did reinforce some things. Some things got a little bit more tolerable. But that's okay. The best I can answer your question, Linda.
All right. So what are some of the other questions?
All right. So how many dances do our kids know?
They know 2. No, 3.
No, they know. I would say about 5 of them.
Well, here's the question: do they know them, or can they do them? If we
well,
want to
it says
ask
how
which
many
one,
do they know? I would say they,
And this is from the man behind the curtain.
This is from the man behind the curtain. How many dances do they know?
Let's not spend too much time on this. This was clearly a joke trolley question.
But it's. I love the fact that a game is getting kids up and moving, and they're just dancing all the time. So there's a foul language comic that we shared on the community. That was, I was so concerned about them playing this violent video game. And now all they do is dance. They won't stop dancing. And that's kind of true.
It is absolutely true. Man, so many kids flossing. So what other questions do we have?
All right. Let's see. How has Fortnite affected the video game industry?
So first off, who asked the question?
That's Rob Sachs.
Rob Sachs. So how has Fortnite affected the video game industry? It's eating everybody's lunch. I talked about that already. Fortnite is huge. The reality is there's only so many people spending money on video games. It's a free game, but it's making $300 million a month from somewhere, right? So, that's it, right? So there are a noticeable drop in the number of players in a lot of online multiplayer focused games. I think that we haven't seen the full impact of Fortnite, because we haven't entered a holiday season with Fortnite in full effect.
Right, and you did talk about how other games are trying to scramble to kind of
we know that Battlefield's going to have one, but that's next year. Call of Duty is going to have one this year. But you can't put a Battle Royale mode in Spider-Man.
No.
And so this is what we're going to see. This is the question, is are people going to put down Fortnite to play some of these single-player experiences? I hope so.
I think so, because
Spider-Man, Red Dead... I mean, for us, as family gamers, Spider-Man is the big one. But, Red Dead Redemption... I mean, that's coming out this year. So what else we got?
All right, so Rob's got a bunch. So the next one from Rob is, do you think Fortnite being a Galaxy Note 9 exclusive for Android is a good or bad thing? I didn't know that was.
It's a thing. Here's the problem with Android compared to iOS. iOS, you're programming for X number of phones. Apple made... we know all the phones that they have made since the beginning. We know which ones, and so it's a standardized, right? So when you're making an iOS app, you really don't have to make that many different, you don't have to accommodate that much, right? It's basically, they all use the same operating system, and they all use largely the same hardware. It's just a difference of power.
Right.
And so being able to accommodate different levels is fine. I don't want to say it's easy and trivialize it, but it is easier than Android, where the Galaxy Note and the, all these, I can't even name them, but there are dozens of different Android phones. And so the fact that they chose one, which is among the more powerful phones, also a powerful phone with a giant screen, because you can't play this game on a tiny little phone.
No, my phone wouldn't do it.
Your phone wouldn't do it, and I'm not even talking about the fact that it probably couldn't run it. I'm talking about your screen is too small.
Right.
Your screen is too small to play Hearthstone on it, let alone a full 3D shooter. So do I think it's a good or a bad thing? There are a lot of Galaxy Notes now.
I was going to say, I don't even see it affecting the amount of people who play the game in my realm of experience. Like the school that I work at, all of the kids played. So either they all had iPhones or they all had Samsung Galaxy Notes.
But it's not on Android yet.
Right.
The kids that were playing it in school already were playing on their iPhones.
So yeah, I don't think that it's a
I don't think it's a bad thing. Yeah. So here's what it is missing is Epic clearly decided to pick one piece of hardware to develop for. When folks saw that they were bringing it to Android, there's a lot of Android games out there, or a lot of Android phones out there. Right. So a lot of folks assumed that this was going to be like this giant surge of new players. In this case, it's probably not going to be a giant surge of new players. It's going to be a modest surge of new players because it only uses this one phone. So do I think it's a problem? What does it say? Is it a good or bad thing? I think it is neither. More players into a new ecosystem is always good. Android players, listen, it is a challenge to make games for Android because there's so many different phones and they're all completely different. So,
but everybody has another system anyway. I mean, not everybody, but feels that way.
The phone, it hurts because there are some kids that have not a Galaxy Note that are going to be a little bit bummed on this. But
yeah, I mean, our son is one of them.
More likely, his phone was never going to run this.
No.
But you know what? Just about every kid who has the wrong phone probably has a PS4 or an Xbox One, or there's a laptop. And this game does not require anything crazy, or a Switch,
or a Chromebook.
And frankly, if they don't have it, they should get a Switch.
Okay. So next question, also from Rob. How can a parent determine if Fortnite is appropriate for their child? That's kind of what we touched on with Linda. It's
watch it.
Yeah, watch the game.
Watch a YouTube video. Literally watch a YouTube video. There are hundreds of hours of Fortnite footage loaded every day. Probably thousands of hours of Fortnite footage loaded every day. Look up Fortnite. Specifically, there's a streamer named Ninja who does family-appropriate Fortnite streams. Just watch it.
Right.
20 minutes and you'll know whether or not this game is for you.
I guarantee if your kids are online watching YouTube videos, even YouTube Kids, they are seeing their favorite YouTube star play Fortnite.
And let's
like
talk
from Dan TDM to Cookie Swirl C. I mean, there are.
Because you got to go where the views are. There's going to be Fortnite Halloween costumes.
Yep.
There are going to be. I just got a press release the other day. There's going to be some premium action figures. So guys, Fortnite is everywhere. But if you want to know if it's appropriate, just watch it. And this is the same. That's the same answer for everything. Go to YouTube, watch the game. I guarantee you, in 10 minutes, you will know whether or not Fortnite is for you and your family.
Right. And I can tell you that my 5-year-old doesn't get it. She wants to play, but she has no idea what's going on. She just
messes around on the phone and
she's held the controllers and has tried to build things, and she's built lots of big towers.
She loves to chop down cars.
Yep.
That's all she does.
Yep. So
she chops down cars and then puts the phone down when she's eliminated.
And she's a smart kid, and she's completely oblivious to the violence level in it at all. So I mean that's. I wouldn't get her own account. I wouldn't necessarily encourage you to have, your 5-year-old get the adrenaline and the bloodlust going. But it's to her, it's just a game where you chop down cars and trees and build towers. Anyways, next question: what has the response been to Sony's controversial decision not to allow crossplay like all the other platforms?
Okay, so this is something we didn't talk about directly, but I think it's worth mentioning. Basically, Sony, who obviously makes the PlayStation 4, has made the decision that if you have ever played on with your Epic account on the PlayStation 4, playing Fortnite, that account is locked to the PlayStation. Further, players who are playing on PlayStation 4 can crossplay with PC, and they can crossplay with mobile. However, they cannot crossplay with Xbox or Switch. On the other hand, all of those things can play nicely without the PS4. What has the reaction been? The reaction has been exactly what you would predict. Gamers want everything. They want it free, and they want it exactly how they want it. So there have been a lot of people who have been yelling at Sony, saying that they are making a mistake, that they need to do it, that they should do it. It's not going to happen. Sony has sold 80 some odd million PS4s. There's not a lot of other people playing it. There's not a lot, they have their own market. And they have no need to allow people to play. There have been a lot of people mad because gamers are entitled in general. But they're not going to budge. And frankly, it really doesn't affect a lot of folks. PlayStation 4 players have plenty of people to play with, and everybody else has plenty of people to play with. So that's that.
All right, next comment is from Jay Goldwait, and it's more of a comment than a question. He likes playing the Save the World part, but everyone he plays with sounds like they're under 10. Many people there seem to be there to trade and scam. Some people get mad and just leave if you don't trade. There's no system for trading. You just drop your stuff, they take it and log off. Unfortunately, I've never played that mode.
So Save the World mode is the actual, Save the World mode is actually the way the game was originally designed.
Right.
So this Battle Royale mode was done, I'm guessing, as kind of a joke. You know what I mean? They really didn't expect it to be anything. This was just a thing to throw out there while they were still developing the Save the World mode, to maybe make a few bucks and, get some laughs out of. I don't think they expected it to change their company into an $8 billion company. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's not meant for trading. This is not Diablo. This is a, So
and you just gotta prep your family, prep your kids for it. People are kind of rude online.
And the fact that everybody sounds like they're 10, that's because they're probably 10.
I mean, there's a lot of kids playing this game, and one of the things that you do realize when you're hearing your kids play with their friends online is that 10-year-olds, 9-year-olds, 12-year-olds, they kind of lack a filter for polite behavior. They don't know yet what's acceptable and what's not. So you have to get up and go do something for your mom. Your friends are going to drop you and join another group. And that's just how it's going to be. It's not polite. It's not nice, but they're kids. So surprisingly, there's a lot of kids playing this game. And you're going to have to deal with that behavior. And it's a good idea prepare your children for some of the not best behavior of the other people that you're playing online with. We've talked a lot about, your online, what's the word we're looking for?
I talk about digital citizenship. Yeah, right. The reality is there are a lot of kids that this is their first online game.
And they just don't know.
Are some of them jerks.
Our son made some pretty bad mistakes when he first started playing Minecraft online with people. He didn't know. He went into their chests and took stuff. He's like, well, it's there. I can use it. And we had to, have some good lessons about what is proper online playing and what's not proper. So take that opportunity and use it as a lesson for your kids about digital citizenship. Absolutely. James Pisano has a question. His question is, how do I learn to floss?
James, our media director, he can watch a YouTube video since he loves videos so much. And I know he brings his phone in the shower, so he can bring his silly iPhone in the shower and watch flossing videos there.
I think you're sharing a little bit too much information about one of your cohorts there. TMI. Anyways,
he is very happy with the fact that the new iPhones are water resistant.
That's very funny. So we have had our fair share of flossing debates in our house as to who can floss and who can't. Our youngest son thinks he's the master of the floss,
and he really doesn't like it when we do it.
And he really hates when his parents do it. So we take every opportunity to either troll him by flossing incorrectly on purpose or by doing it and doing it well, and he still critiques us.
Yep.
To the point where when we went to family night at the scouting camp out, the parents were on one side doing the floss where the kids were on the other side of a large kind of amphitheater thing. Yep. And we were trying to basically troll them. So take this as your opportunity to embarrass your kid. Learn as many dances as you can. They're at an age now, if they're playing Fortnite, they're probably at an age where they're easily embarrassed. I love to do it. I'm actually pretty good at the floss.
You're good enough to make him cry.
Right, and he gets really mad. He's like, Mom, your hair's moving. Your whole body's not supposed to move. I'm like, I can't control my hair moving, child. It's very funny. But yes, we take every opportunity with these Fortnite dances to embarrass our kids because they embarrassed us for so long. It's kind of nice to get our...
That's nice to get them back.
Yeah.
So that's Fortnite. We got any other questions from the community?
No, that's all the questions from the community. I hope we answered them all.
If we didn't, there is that thread in the community, and we will go in and answer everyone's questions as time goes on. So I think that's it. Thank you very much, folks, for listening to episode 145 of Engage, a family gaming podcast. Before we go, I do want to have, I've been doing this recently, but I'm just going to do it again. I have one favor that I'd like all of you to do for me. Every one of us listening to this podcast, if we take a moment, can think about one person who we think would love to listen to this show. And what I would love for you to do is reach out and bring this podcast to them. Share them the link, have them like the Facebook page, tell them about what we do. Because if everybody who's listening to this podcast does that, some of them will stick. And that'll help just grow our audience. And a bigger audience just means, more opportunities for us to do cool stuff and share cool stuff with you. So I'll do it if all of you folks will do it along with me. So until next time, this is Steven.
And this is Jenna.
We're signing off. We hope you have a wonderful week. We'll be back next week to talk about board games, specifically talking about all the cool stuff that got revealed this weekend at Gen Con. And until next time, don't forget to get your family
game on. Can we do it together?
Yeah. And until next time, don't forget to get your family game on. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Engage, a family gaming podcast.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. Tune in next week.